The great hall on Valor Prime shimmered under endless crystal light. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy sat in curved seats that floated just above the polished floor. The air smelled clean and cold like metal left in snow. The Chiron speaker stood tall on 6 legs. His shell gleamed black and red like fresh blood on obsidian. He raised one claw, and the room grew quiet. We come to end a problem that grows too fast. The humans spread like fire through dry grass. They take worlds that belong to others. They help weak species fight against our rules. They build ships that go where they please without asking. The time has come to stop them. A low hum rose from the crowd. Some nodded, some clicked mandibles in agreement. An avian delegate from the Sarin flocks spread wide blue wings and spoke in a sharp voice. Humans ignore every treaty. They trade with outcasts. They settle in neutral zones. They send aid to rebels. We lose control because of them. A crystalline being from the Shard Collective pulsed soft green light across its facets. Humans do not respect slow growth. They rush, they breed fast, they change rules to suit themselves. Their chaos spreads. We must act, or the old order falls. The methane breathers floated in their sealed orbs. One released bubbles that formed words in glowing gas. Humans refuse to wait. They claim every empty rock. They push borders outward. Without vote, their ambition threatens balance. We agree with the Chiron. All eyes turned to the small platform where the human sat. Ambassador Elena Voss wore a plain gray suit. Her hair was tied back tight. She looked calm, almost bored. She did not stand until the Chiron speaker pointed one claw at her. "Speak, human, tell us why we should not crush your worlds now." Elena Voss looked around the hall. She saw fear, she saw anger, she saw certainty. She spoke in a clear, steady voice. "You make a very old mistake. We do not ask for permission to exist." Laughter broke out. Chiron mandibles clacked in mockery. Sarin wings fluttered with scorn. The methane orbs bubbled in amusement. The crystalline facets flashed bright with disdain. The Chiron speaker stepped closer. "You think words save you? We have fleets that blot out stars. We have weapons that burn planets to glass your ships. Our toys, your colonies, are weak. Your people are loud. But soft, we will take your outer worlds. We will block your trade. We will leave Saul alone in darkness. You will learn respect, or you will vanish." Elena Voss did not flinch. She met every stare. She spoke once more. "You choose this path. Remember that choice when the quiet comes." The vote began. Lights flashed across the crystal walls. Green for yes, red for no. One by one, the delegates marked their choice. The Chiron watched. With satisfaction, the Sarin flocks voted. As one, the Shard Collective pulsed agreement. The methane breathers drifted in slow circles as their orbs glowed green. When the final count appeared, the hall filled with sound. The resolution passed. The Galactic conquered, declared quarantine on humanity. Trade stopped. Ships turned back. Colonies stood alone. Military forces moved toward human borders. The Chiron fleet prepared to lead the first strike. Delegates rose and left the hall in groups. They talked of order. They talked of peace. They talked of teaching humans their place. No one noticed that Elena Voss stayed seated. She looked at the empty seats. She looked at the glowing walls. She looked at nothing at all. Outside the hall, the sky of Valor Prime turned deep. Purple ships lifted from the landing fields. Chiron cruisers formed perfect lines. Their engines burned bright against the night. The armada moved out slow and sure. They headed for human space. On Earth, the news arrived in silence. Government offices stayed open. Lights burned late in meeting rooms. People watched screens and said little. No panic filled the streets. No crowds gathered. No loud speeches came from leaders. In a small room under a mountain, a group of men and women sat around a plain table. Maps glowed on the walls. Data streams ran across screens. One woman stood and spoke. "We received the vote. They move against us now." A man with gray hair nodded. "We knew this day would come. Plans are ready. Ships wait in dark orbits. Teams stand ready across the border. The question is how far they push." Another woman leaned forward. "They think we fight like them. They think we meet fleet with fleet. They think we beg or bargain. They do not know us yet." The gray-haired man looked at each face. We do not start wars, we finish them. Let them come, let them take what they want. The answer waits in silence. Outside, the mountain wind moved through trees, stars shone cold and clear. The planet turned slow and calm as always. Far away, the Chiron admiral stood on his bridge. He watched stars slide past the view screen. His officers worked at stations, their claws moved fast across controls. He spoke to the fleet. This is the hour of correction. Humans will learn fear, they will learn obedience, they will learn that defiance ends in nothing. The fleet jumped together, space folded around them. They emerged near the first human colony, Epsilon Eridani. For the world looked small and quiet from orbit. No ships rose to meet them, no weapons fired, no signals challenged them. Scout ships went down. They found empty streets, empty homes, empty factories. Lights still glowed. But no one walked the paths. The admiral watched the reports and smiled. They ran, they hid, they know we come in strength. He gave the order, claim the system, raise our banners, send word to the conquered, victory begins here. A single message played across every channel in the conquered language: leave now. This is your final courtesy. The Chiron laughed. They shut off the broadcast. They moved deeper into the colony. They took control points. They posted guards. They settled in. Night fell on the planet. Stars filled the sky. The wind moved soft across empty fields. Somewhere far below the surface, a small device clicked. Once, then it waited. The admiral returned to his ship. He sat in his chair. He looked at the stars. He felt the weight of coming triumph. He did not know that the quiet had already started. On Valor Prime, the delegates gathered again. They shared reports. They drank from crystal cups. They spoke of order restored. They spoke of humans brought low. They did not see the first small light that blinked out on their star maps. A single Chiron scout ship failed to report. It had patrolled near the edge of human space. Then it simply stopped. No call came, no beacon sounded. It vanished clean and complete. No one worried. Yet one ship could have trouble. Engines could fail, signals could break. They sent another ship to look. That ship also vanished. The quiet grew. Elena Voss walked through the streets of New Geneva. On Earth rain fell light and steady. She wore no coat. She let the water touch her face. She looked up at the gray sky. She smiled, small and private. People passed her. They carried bags. They talked about normal things. They lived. As always, she knew the storm came. She knew the galaxy moved against them. She knew the answer waited, ready and patient. She whispered to the rain one word: soon. The word carried no fear, it carried certainty. The stars watched and waited. The galaxy held its breath. The quiet spread slow and sure. And humanity prepared to answer in the only way it knew. The Chiron fleet filled the space around Epsilon Eridani 4 like a cloud of black knives. Every ship held steady, weapons stayed cold. No human vessels rose to fight. The admiral watched from his command deck and felt victory sit easy in his chest. They had come, they had taken. The colony belonged to the conquered now. Soldiers in heavy armor walked the empty streets. They searched houses, they checked factories. They found food still warm on tables, chairs pushed back, as if people had just left. Tools lay where hands dropped them. Lights burned in halls, but no voices answered. The admiral sent more teams. They dug into bunkers, they scanned tunnels. They found nothing. One officer reported back, "The place feels wrong, sir. No bodies, no blood, no signs of hurry. They just went away." The admiral clicked his mandibles in annoyance. They fled like cowards. They hid in holes or ran to other worlds. "We will hunt them later. For now we claim this prize. Send the message to Valor Prime. The first human world falls without a shot." The broadcast went out across the galaxy. The Chiron have secured Epsilon Eridani for humanity. Offers no defense. Their weakness stands clear. The quarantine titans. Other colonies will follow. Cheers rose on Chiron ships. Crews struck their claws against hull plates. Officers drank strong liquor from metal cups. They spoke of glory. They spoke of easy days ahead. Then the first whisper came. A patrol ship near the outer edge of the system sent a routine ping. It never returned. The admiral waited one cycle. Then 2-0 appeared on sensors, no debris, no signal flare. He ordered a search team. 3 fast cruisers jumped toward the last known position. They arrived, they scanned, they found empty space. The patrol ship had vanished clean, no heat trace, no radiation bloom, no broken metal drifting. The cruisers reported back, and the Admiral felt the first small itch of doubt. He pushed it down, he told himself. One ship meant little, engines failed, sometimes crews made mistakes. He ordered the fleet to tighten formation. No more lone patrols, all ships stayed in groups of 5. Night cycle came on the captured colony. Lights still glowed in empty buildings. The wind moved through streets and carried no sound. The Chiron soldiers posted guards, they set up camps, they slept under open sky. In the morning, one guard post stood silent. 5 soldiers, their weapons lay on the ground. Their armor sat empty, helmets rested where heads had been, no footprints led away. No blood marked the dirt. The camp commander searched, he found nothing. He reported to the Admiral. The Admiral listened and felt the itch grow stronger. He ordered scans from orbit satellites. Swept the surface, they saw heat from campfires, they saw moving soldiers, they saw no missing men, yet the count stayed short. Another patrol vanished, this time a full squadron of 10 fighters. They jumped to check a nearby asteroid field. They never came back, no call, no flash, no trace. The Admiral stood on his bridge and stared at blank screens. He spoke low to his second officer. Something hunts us. The second officer shifted on 6 legs. We see no enemy ships. We detect no weapons fire, nothing attacks, nothing shows on scopes. The Admiral turned away. Then why do our numbers drop? Days passed, more ships failed to answer hails. Entire supply convoys disappeared between jumps. One moment, they flew in tight formation. The next moment, sensors showed empty lanes. Crews on other ships reported ghost voices that spoke human words in calm tones, voices that gave coordinates that led to dead space. The Admiral called a meeting with conquered commanders on secure channels. The avian delegate spoke. First, this is trickery, human stealth tech, human traps. We must strike harder, we must hit their core systems. The crystalline being pulsed. Slow agreement. Their silence means fear. They hide because they know defeat comes. The methane breather bubbled words. We lose ships, but gain worlds. Push forward, take more ground. They cannot hide forever. The Admiral listened. He wanted to agree. He wanted to believe. Yet every report brought more empty chairs, more missing names, more questions without answers. On Earth, quiet work continued. Teams met in deep rooms. Engineers tested small devices. Scientists watched data streams. Military officers planned paths that no one outside the circle could see. No loud announcements came. No fleets gathered in plain view. Ships stayed dark. Ships stayed silent. Ships waited. One engineer looked at his screen and nodded. The first gates hold position. They take what we mark. The quiet works as planned. Another officer smiled small. We gave them the chance to leave. They chose to stay. Now they pay the price. In the captured colony, strange things grew bolder. A Chiron soldier walked a dark corridor. He heard steps behind him. He turned and saw nothing. He walked again. The steps returned closer. This time, he ran. He reached the open air. He looked back. The corridor stayed empty. Yet his shadow moved wrong. It moved when he stood still. He told no one. He feared they would call him mad. Another soldier woke in his bunk. He felt cold air on his face. He saw his breath in the light. He looked around. His squad mates slept in their beds. Yet something watched from the corner, a shape that had no form, a weight that pressed without touch. He closed his eyes. He opened them. The feeling stayed. He left the tent. He stood under stars. He whispered to the night, "Who are you?" No answer came, yet the air grew heavier. The Admiral received the latest count: 30 ships gone without trace, 2,000 crew missing, no bodies, no wrecks. The fleet still looked strong from outside. Yet inside, fear crept slow and sure. He walked his bridge alone. He stopped at the main view screen. He watched the captured world turn below. He spoke to the empty air. "Show yourself human, show me your hand." Silence answered. He turned away. He gave new orders, double guards, triple scans. No ship moves alone, we push to the next colony. We take it fast, we show strength. The fleet prepared again, engines warmed, weapons, charged ships, aligned the jump. Came clean, they emerged near the next human. World, a small mining station called Delta Pavinus 3. They expected empty streets again, they expected silence. They found something else. The station lights burned, bright ships sat in docks, unmoving. Yet powered crew quarters showed life signs, small groups moved inside, no weapons fired, no challenge came. The admiral smiled, they learned, they wait for terms, they offer surrender. He sent boarding teams, teams landed, teams entered corridors, teams walked halls, they found tables set with food. They found screens showing old human films, they found beds made neat, yet no one greeted them. One team reached the central control room, the door stood open, inside a single console. Glowed a message, played on loop, in clear Concord script. You took our home, you ignored our words now. You pay the price, leave while you can. The team leader laughed, primitive threats, we hold this place now. He reached to shut off the console, his claw touched the panel. Then the room emptied. 1 second, 5 soldiers stood there, the next second. Nothing, helmets clattered to the floor, armor collapsed, empty, weapons dropped from grips that no longer existed. The rest of the boarding party froze, they stared at empty space. They called names, no answer came. Panic rose, they ran back to the shuttles, they lifted fast, they reached the flagship, they reported shaking. The admiral listened and felt ice in his core. He looked at the mining station, it turned slow. And calm lights still burned, ships still sat, no damage showed, no battle scars marked the hull. Yet his teams kept vanishing. He ordered retreat, pull back, hold orbit, do not land again. The fleet pulled away, they watched from distance, they waited for the next move. The next move never came in fire or steel, it came in absence. Another squadron vanished mid-orbit one moment, they guarded the flank, the next moment empty space stared back. The admiral stood frozen, he looked at his officers, they looked back with wide eyes, no one spoke. The quiet grew louder. On Earth, a woman watched a screen, she saw the reports, she saw the losses, she turned to her team and spoke soft, they still do not understand. A man nodded, they think we fight their way, they think we meet force with force. She smiled thin, they will learn. The galaxy watched and waited, the conquered claimed victory on maps, yet every day the maps showed fewer ships, fewer names, fewer certainties. The admiral sat alone in his quarters, he stared at a hollow of the human ambassador, her face stayed calm, her eyes stayed steady. He whispered to the image, what do you hide? No answer came. Yet somewhere in the dark, between stars, small gates, waited, they watched, they measured, they took what they were told to take. And the quiet kept spreading. One ship at a time. One crew at a time. One world at a time. Humanity did not shout. Humanity did not rush. Humanity simply removed what defied it. And the galaxy began to feel the weight of that simple truth. Months dragged on, and the quarantine started to crack in small ways. Human merchant ships appeared in neutral zones. They carried simple cargo, food, tools, medicine they traded with minor species that the conquered had ordered to stay away. No weapons showed on their hulls, no escorts flew beside them. Yet when conquered enforcers moved in fast, the human ships slipped away. They did not fight, they did not run in panic, they simply were not there. When the capture nets closed, space stayed empty, the enforcers returned with nothing but questions. The Chiron admiral watched these reports pile up on his screens. He paced the bridge, his claws clicked against the deck. He spoke to his officers, they mock us, they slip through our fingers like smoke. How do they do this without engines, without jump drives, without any sign? One officer studied the data and answered low, sir, the scans show micro distortions, tiny ripples in space-time. They last less than a second, then gone. We think they use gates, small ones, hidden ones placed long ago. The admiral stopped. Packing gates, how many? Too many to count, sir. They seed them years before trouble starts. They wait, they watch, they open only when needed. The Admiral felt cold spread through his shell. He had heard rumors of human tricks, old stories from traders who dealt with them. Humans never forget humans, never forgive humans, prepare for wars they hope never come, yet now the preparation showed its teeth. On distant Chiron worlds the vanishings grew bolder. An orbital fortress above the homeworld hung in high orbit. It carried 10,000 troops, heavy guns pointed outward, shields thick as hull plating. One cycle it sent normal status reports, the next cycle sensors showed nothing. The fortress had vanished whole, no explosion, no battle trace, no debris cloud, just empty orbit where steel and life had been. Ground bases followed outposts on colony moons. Lost contact teams went to check. They found empty bunkers, empty armories, empty chairs with half-eaten meals. Yet no signs of struggle, no blood, no scorch marks. The bases stood silent and clean, as if everyone had stepped out for a moment and never returned. Rare survivors appeared on fringe worlds. They arrived in escape pods with no memory of how they got there. They spoke in broken voices of sudden silence, of darkness that swallowed light, of cold that burned without fire. They described a place where stars moved wrong and time ran backward. They begged not to be sent back. Most never spoke again. The conquered council met again on Valor Prime. The chamber felt colder. Now delegates sat farther apart. Eyes darted more often. The Chiron speaker stood and spoke loud. We face no ordinary foe. Humanity uses forbidden tech. They bend space. They steal our strength. We must strike their heart. We must take Earth. We must burn their cradle and end this nightmare. The avian delegate folded wings tight. We lose ships every day. Our fleets shrink. Our crews fear the dark. What if we send everything and lose everything? The crystalline being pulsed dim. We have no choice. If we stop now, the fear spreads. The lesser species will rise. The old order crumbles. We go all in or we fade. The methane breathers released slow gas clouds that formed grim words. Agree, full armada, to Sol, strike hard, strike now. The vote passed quick. No one argued, no one hesitated. The conquered gathered its full might. Thousands of warships from every member species. They formed lines that stretched across light hours. Engines burned bright. Jump drives hummed ready. The target stayed clear. Earth. The Chiron admiral stood on his new flagship, the largest vessel ever built by his people. He looked at the star map. Sol glowed small and alone. He spoke to the fleet. This ends now. We take their world. We take their future. We show the galaxy what happens when you defy the conquered. The armada jumped together. Space folded in perfect order. They emerged, scattered. Some appeared inside stars. Flames swallowed them whole. Others materialized deep in gas giants. Pressure crushed them flat. Many never arrived at all. Navigation systems failed in ways no one could explain. Jump coordinates shifted mid-transit. Ships arrived light years off course. Some emerged facing backward. Some emerged inside each other. Metal twisted and screamed, then went silent. The survivors limped into the Sol system. They expected defenses. They expected fleets. They expected fire. Instead, they found quiet. Earth turned slow and blue. Cities glowed. Soft shipyards sat empty. No orbital batteries fired. No fighters launched. No shields rose. A single transmission reached the broken armada in calm human voice. You were warned. The admiral stared at the blue world. He felt rage. He felt fear. He gave the order, all ships advance, bombard the surface, leave nothing. Before the order reached every ship, the flagship began to vanish. Pieces disappeared. Hull sections went first. Clean cuts with no heat, no sparks. Whole compartments emptied. Crew vanished mid-step. Officers watched their hands fade into nothing. The admiral stood on the bridge. He saw his crew disappear one by one. A navigator reached for controls, and his arm ended at the elbow. No blood, no pain, just gone. The admiral shouted orders. No one answered. The bridge grew empty. Chairs stayed warm, but empty. Screens flickered with no hands to touch them. He stood alone. He looked at the view screen. Earth still turned calm and untouched. He whispered to the silence, why? No answer came. The rest of the armada felt the same horror. Ships lost sections, bit by bit. Engines vanished mid-burn. Weapons platforms, emptied turrets spun with no crews to aim them. Life support failed in blocks. Crews woke to find their squads gone, their families gone, their memories of home gone. They screamed into empty corridors. Some ships tried to jump away. Jump drives failed. They opened to nowhere. Some ships tried to fight. They fired at shadows. Weapons passed through nothing. Some ships tried to surrender. They broadcast pleas. No one answered. One by one, the ships vanished, not in fire, not in explosions, in absence. Clean and complete, the armada that had darkened stars now darkened nothing. On Earth, people watched from safe rooms. Screens showed the enemy fleet arrive. Screens showed the enemy fleet break apart. No cheers rose. No songs played. People nodded once, then returned to their work. Engineers checked small gates. Scientists noted data streams. Officers marked names from lists. The job stayed simple. Remove what threatens, remove what defies. In a quiet office, Ambassador Elena Voss sat with a cup of tea. She looked at the final report. She saw the numbers drop to 0. She set the cup down. She spoke soft to the empty room they chose. Outside, rain fell on the city streets. Stayed busy. People walked under umbrellas. They talked about tomorrow. They planned vacations. They lived as always. The stars above stayed steady. No one feared them anymore. Far away on Valor Prime, the council chamber stood half-empty. Delegates who once filled seats now stayed home. They feared to gather. They feared to speak. The crystal walls no longer shimmered. Bright dust gathered in corners. The great hall felt small and forgotten. A single Chiron officer arrived late. He carried no weapons. He carried only a message. He spoke to the few who remain. The armada is gone. Earth stands untouched. Our ships never fired a shot. Our crews never returned. The humans did not fight. They removed us. The remaining delegates listened. They said nothing. They looked at each other. They looked at the floor. They understood at last. The quarantine ended not with treaty, not with peace, not with victory. It ended with absence. The conquered shrank back. Species retreated to their home systems. Trade slowed. Borders closed. Fear took the place of pride. Human ships moved again. They traded. They explored. They settled new worlds. No one stopped them. No one dared. No one asked how the vanishings happened. No one wanted to know. The gates stayed hidden. They waited. They watched. They remembered. Humanity did not celebrate. No parades filled streets. No leaders gave speeches. They simply continued. They built. They learned. They grew. The galaxy learned the lesson slow and hard. Never dare defy humanity. Not because they conquer, not because they destroy, but because when the line crosses they erase. And the erased stay erased. Forever. The quiet settled deep, and the stars watched in silence. The shattered remnants of the great armada drifted in the outer edges of the Sol system like broken toys left in the dark. Some ships still floated whole, but silent. Others had pieces missing, as if giant bites had been taken out of them. Hulls showed clean, empty sections, where engines used to roar, where crews used to work. The admiral of the Chiron flagship sat alone on a bridge that once held 50 officers. Now only his chair remained warm. The rest stayed cold and empty. He stared at the blue world below. Earth turned slow, and peaceful clouds moved across ocean. Cities glowed with soft, steady light. No fleets rose to meet the invaders. No missiles flew. No voices challenged on open channels. The admiral felt rage burn inside his shell. He wanted to fire everything. He wanted to burn the surface to ash. He wanted to hear screams echo across space. He pressed the command panel. All weapons lock on major population centers. Fire when ready. Nothing happened. No hum of power, no vibration of barrels charging. The screen stayed dark. The targeting systems blinked error codes that made no sense. The admiral struck the panel with his claw. Sparks flew, but the ship stayed dead. He looked around. He called out to his officers' names that once answered fast. Now silence met every shout. He stood up. He walked the corridors. He passed empty stations. He passed open hatches. He passed rooms where food sat untouched on tables. Chairs stayed pushed back. Beds stayed made, yet no one lived there anymore. He reached the engine room. The massive cores that once pushed the ship across stars now sat quiet. No glow came from the containment fields. No heat rose from the decks. The admiral touched a console. It felt cold like stone left in winter. He whispered to the empty air, "Where did you go?" No answer came. He returned to the bridge. He sat again. He opened a channel to the few surviving ships. Report status. All ships report. Static answered first. Then one voice broke through, faint and shaking. "This is Cruiser Talon 3. We have 30 crew left, sir." The rest vanished mid-shift. One moment they stood at posts, the next moment gone. "We tried to jump home. The drive opened to black. Nothing. We barely pulled back. Our navigator is missing. Our captain is missing. We do not know what to do." The admiral listened. He felt the weight press harder. Another voice. "Join. This is Destroyer Claw Edge. We lost our entire weapons deck section. By section, it disappeared. No explosion, no sound, just gone. We see Earth below, but we cannot reach it. Our guns point at nothing." More voices came in broken pieces. All told the same story: crews, shrinking ships, failing systems, dying. Without cause, the admiral shut the channel. He could not listen anymore. He could not bear the fear in their words. He looked at Earth again. He saw no defenses, no shields, no armadas waiting in orbit. Yet the armada that had come to conquer now crumbled without a fight. He understood at last. Humanity did not need to meet them in battle. Humanity did not need lasers or missiles or bombs. Humanity simply took away what should not be there. He stood one last time. He walked to the view screen. He placed one claw against the glass. He spoke low to the blue world. "You win. Without fighting you erase. Without hate you remove. Without mercy. What kind of creatures are you?" The screen stayed silent. Then the vanishing reached him first. His left claw faded. It disappeared up to the elbow. No pain touched him. No blood flowed, just absence. He looked at the stump. It ended clean. As if cut by invisible blade. He tried to move it. Nothing answered. Next his legs went section by section. They vanished from the bottom up. He fell to the deck, but felt no impact because the deck beneath him started to vanish too. He lay on nothing. He stared at the ceiling that slowly emptied into black. His last sight showed Earth still turning calm, and untouched cities still glowed lights, still moved in patterns that spoke of life, continuing. The admiral closed his eyes. He felt the quiet take him whole. The bridge finished vanishing. The ship finished vanishing. The name of the flagship faded from conquered records, as if it had never existed. Across the system, the last few ships tried one final act. They turned toward Earth. They opened fire with what weapons remained. Beams lanced out bright and hot. They crossed the distance fast. They should have struck cities. They should have cracked continents. The beams never landed. They passed through empty space, where Earth should have been. One moment the planet hung clear in view. The next moment, the beams met nothing. They continued into the void and disappeared. The ships that fired them looked at blank scanners. They saw no impact, no fire, no destruction. Then their own hulls began to vanish. Pieces fell away in perfect silence. Crews watched sections of their ships disappear. Friends vanished mid-sentence. Commands died on lips that no longer existed. One captain broadcast a final message. "This is the end. We came to teach a lesson. We received one. Instead, humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. Humanity simply removes what stands in the way. Tell whoever hears this, do not defy them. Do not challenge them. Walk away while you can." The transmission cut off mid-word. The ship vanished. The message became the last echo of the once mighty conquered armada. On Earth, people continued their days. Markets stayed open. Schools taught lessons. Factories built new things. Parks filled with laughter. No victory flags flew. No crowds cheered the defeat of invaders. People knew what happened. They knew the price paid. They knew the cost avoided. They simply lived. In a deep command center, a small group watched the final data streams fade. One woman turned to the others and spoke quiet. "The armada is gone. All traces removed. No survivors, no wreckage, no proof they ever reached our space." A man nodded. "The gates did their work clean and complete. We seeded them years ago. We waited, we watched, now they rest again. Another woman looked at the screen that showed empty space, where thousands of ships once flew. She spoke soft. They chose defiance. They chose to take what was not theirs. They paid the price we set. The group said nothing more. They closed the files. They turned off the lights. They left the room. The planet kept turning. The stars kept shining. Life kept moving forward. Far from Saul, on the worlds of the old, conquered fear took root. Species that once ruled vast empires now stayed close to home. They built high walls around their systems. They shut down long-range jumps. They spoke in whispers about the humans, about the quiet, about the vanishings. Trade ships that once filled lanes now stayed docked. Merchants refused routes near human. Space explorers marked maps with red zones, labeled human territory. Enter and vanish. Stories spread slow and dark, tales of ships gone in silence, tales of crews waking on empty worlds with no memory, tales of voices that whispered warnings. Too late, the galaxy shrank back. It left room for humanity to grow unchecked. Human ships moved out again. They explored new stars. They settled new planets. They traded with those who asked politely. No one stopped them, no one dared, no one questioned the empty sectors where conquered fleets once patrolled. Ambassador Elena Voss walked through a park on Earth. Sun touched her face, wind moved her hair. She sat on a bench. She watched children play. She watched birds fly. She thought of the council hall on Valor Prime. She thought of the arrogant voices. She thought of the vote that started everything. She smiled, small and private. They dared. She whispered. They defied, and they vanished. A child ran past, laughing. The sound filled the air with life. Elena Voss stood up. She walked home. She lived as always. The galaxy watched from distance. It learned the hard truth. Humanity does not seek conquest. Humanity does not crave empire. Humanity simply protects what it builds. And when something threatens that protection, humanity removes the threat. Cleanly, completely, without fanfare, without mercy, without regret. The quiet returned, deeper than before, and the stars stayed silent witnesses to what happens when defiance meets humanity. The end came not in fire, not in thunder, but in absence. And absence lasted forever. Years passed, and the galactic conquered became a shadow of its former self. The grand hall on Valor Prime gathered dust. Crystal walls, once bright, now looked dull, and cracked floors that echoed with important voices stayed silent. Delegates who once filled every seat now avoided the place. Few came, few spoke, fewer still believed in the old promises of unity and order. Many elder species pulled back into their home systems. They built thick defense grids around their stars. They closed jump lane. They refused trade with outsiders. They told stories to their young about the time before the quiet. They spoke of humans in low voices. They spoke of ships that vanished without reason. They spoke of silence that swallowed armies whole. Chiron worlds, once loud with marching feet and roaring engines, now felt empty. Factories ran at half-speed. Streets stayed quiet. Homes held fewer voices. The emperor, who once demanded surrender, now sat alone in his palace. He stared at empty thrones. He stared at blank screens. He wondered where his fleets went. He wondered where his people went. No answers came. Some refugees appeared on distant fringe worlds. They arrived in small pods. They arrived with no ships, no crews, no memory of travel. They spoke in whispers. They described cold, dark places, where light bent wrong, where time moved slow, then fast, then backward. They begged for shelter. They begged never to return. Most never spoke again. Some vanished again soon. After arrival, no one searched for them. No one dared. Traders who once crossed the galaxy now stuck to safe lanes. They avoided sectors marked with red warnings. Human space enter at own risk. Maps showed huge empty zones where conquered fleets used to patrol, where stations used to shine, where trade used to flow. Now nothing moved. Their sensors returned static. Probes sent in never returned. Human ships crossed those empty zones without fear. They moved slow and sure. They explored new stars. They claimed new worlds. They built stations. They planted flags. No one challenged them. No one fired on them, no. One even hailed them with demands. Trade partners grew bold again, minor species, sent envoys, they asked polite questions. They offered fair deals, they received fair answers. Humanity traded, they shared, they grew. No conquest followed, no empires rose under human rule, no subject worlds paid tribute. Humanity simply existed, it expanded, it learned, it protected what it held. The galaxy watched and learned to stay clear. On Earth, life continued in its steady rhythm. Cities grew taller, parks stayed, green rivers stayed clean. People walked streets, they talked about work, they talked about family, they talked about tomorrow. No one spoke much about the war that never became a war. No victory monument stood, no holidays marked the day. The Armada vanished, people knew what happened, they knew why it happened, they chose to move forward. In a quiet house near the sea, Ambassador Elena Voss lived her later years. She walked every morning, she watched waves. She listened to wine, she read old books. She spoke little about the past. One day, a young reporter came to her door. The reporter carried a small recorder. The reporter asked careful questions. Ambassador Voss invited the reporter inside. They sat by a window, sunlight touched the table. The reporter asked, "Did you plan the vanishings?" Elena Voss looked out at the water. She spoke calm, "No. We did not plan, we prepared. We prepared for many things. We prepared for arrogance. We prepared for greed. We prepared for those who think they can take without asking. We gave every chance to walk away." The reporter leaned forward, "And when they did not walk away, then we removed the threat. We removed it clean. We removed it complete. We did not destroy. We did not conquer. We simply took away what chose to stand against us." The reporter wrote fast. The reporter asked, "Do you regret it?" Elena Voss smiled. "Small regret belongs to those who act without thought. We acted with thought. We acted with warning. We acted with finality. They chose, they paid. No regret lives here." The reporter stayed silent for a moment. The reporter asked, "What if someone tries again?" Elena Voss looked at the young face. She spoke soft. "Then they vanish too. The gates still wait. They remember, they watch, they take what they must. The quiet never sleeps." The reporter left with many notes. The story appeared later in small print. Few read it, few cared. The galaxy had moved on, humanity had moved on, the past stayed in the past. Decades later, a new generation walked the stars. Young humans explored distant systems. They found old conquered ruins, empty stations, empty outposts, empty worlds. They walked halls where once great fleets gathered. They touched console that once controlled armies. They found dust and silence. They found no ghosts. They found no warnings. They found only absence. One explorer stood on a forgotten bridge. She looked at cracked view screens. She saw stars she had never seen. She spoke to her team. They dared, they defied, and they vanished. Her team nodded. They understood. They continued their work. They mapped, they built, they lived. The gate stayed hidden deep in space between folds of reality, small and patient. They waited for the next fool who thought humanity could be taught a lesson. They waited for the next voice that spoke of quarantine. They waited for the next fleet that darkened stars with arrogance. They never slept, they never forgot, they never forgave. Humanity never gloated. Humanity never boasted. Humanity never needed to. The proof lived in the empty places. The proof lived in the silent lanes. The proof lived in the fear that kept the galaxy polite. Children on Earth learned history in simple lessons. They learned about the old council. They learned about the vote. They learned about the Armada. They learned the final truth: never dare defy humanity, not because we seek war, not because we love destruction, but because when pushed too far we remove the push. Parents told bedtime stories about quiet nights, about gates that opened in the dark, about ships that sailed into nothing. Children listened, wide-eyed. Children slept safe. They knew the galaxy stayed peaceful because someone once dared and paid the price. Old stars burned steady, new stars formed, new worlds spun, new life grew. Humanity reached outward. It reached without rush, it reached without fear, it reached because it could. The title of the story became legend. They dared defy humanity and vanished. No one added to it. No one needed to the words carried enough weight, the words carried enough warning. In the end, the galaxy found balance not through treaties, not through alliances, not through grand speeches. It found balance through absence, through silence, through the simple fact that some lines must never be crossed. And when those lines get crossed, humanity answers in the only way it knows. It erases. It removes. It continues. The quiet settled forever. The stars watched. The galaxy turned. Humanity endured. And nothing dared defy it again.